Here we have the Cold Steel American Lawman. This is my newest knife. I've had this for almost a week now. So far so good. Haven't had any issues with it yet. This knife is Cold Steel. Cold Steel is the brand, the company. They recently sold their company, so I decided I want to get my hands on a couple knives I've been eyeing from Cold Steel, hoping that I'll maybe get previous production before the new company starts producing them. I know they haven't planned on changing anything, but just in case the new production goes south, I want to get a couple of the knives that I kind of been eyeing. This is one of them that I've definitely been eyeing for a while. The other one is Cold Steel Airlight, and the drop point version, and another one actually is the Cold Steel SR1. Actually, there's quite a few. The 8015. I do have 3 Cold Steel knives. This is my 3rd one. Actually, my first one was the Cold Steel Code 4. This is the clip point version. You can see a comparison there. And the second Cold Steel knife that I purchased is a Cold Steel 8010. Amazing, beautiful knife. And you can see a little comparison there on the size. So when I initially got my Cold Steel Code 4, I really liked how slim it was. It is incredibly thin, not too heavy, about 4 ounces, maybe a little bit hair over that. However, the handles are aluminum. It is a S35 VN steel, as all 3 of these knives are. This is a satin polish finish, as well as the 8010 is also satin. The American Lawman only comes with this DLC blade. Yes, this is a DLC blade, and it is a little bit different than like a Spyderco DLC. It's not matte or flat black like those Spyderco DLCs you see. This is more of like a reflective black. And I actually did the test in the sunlight, and I was making sure I wasn't looking at the reflection of the edge itself, because I was seeing where that was at and seeing if it would actually reflect light, and it does reflect light and bounces off of it. It almost reminds me of like a Teflon coating. However, it is advertised, and it is definitely a DLC. I think it may be just a different product, or maybe how they manufacture and apply it on there. Anyways, when I got my first knife, the Code 4, I was really happy with it. The one major thing I didn't like about it was how slick these handle scales are. Fully aluminum, pretty slick. There's no like grip texturing or anything like that. But yeah, I did like how thin this knife is and how slicey it is. So I did kind of enjoy it for a little while. My next knife from Cold Steel was the 8010, and I was just like amazed at this knife. It is really, really drop sheddy, kind of really good action. Blade deploys and drops with no real effort, and it is just very smooth and very nice overall. But it is rather thick. You can see it is actually quite contoured, which is nice. It's very comfortable in the hand. But yeah, just when it's in your pocket with this beefy pocket clip and how thick this blade is, or not the blade, but the handle material, it just really takes up a lot of real estate. So that's kind of why I wanted kind of something like similar to this. I like the Ford Choil, but it's just way too thick. And actually the American Lawman is almost like a combination of those 2 knives. If you see, it has a very neutral handle position, and the top of the blade meets up with a G10, and it kind of just has this neutral overall shape. It does curve slightly, but it's overall very neutral, very comfortable, just like the 8010. The 8010 might be, well, it's just a little bit longer, so it's more comfortable in that aspect. But yeah, it's also got a lot of contouring, and it's thicker, so it is a lot more comfortable in the hand, and I really, really like this knife. But yeah, this American Lawman is very reminiscent of that. It is just a very, very kind of like a slim version. They're both drop points. You can see a comparison here. It's almost like they took the thinness of this Code 4, and there's no liners on the Code 4, just like there's no liners on the American Lawman. And the 8010 does have liners, obviously. But yeah, that's kind of what makes this knife so thick. It's almost like, I was actually looking at another knife, the Ultimate Hunter, which is just 2 slabs of G10 with no liners, kind of similar to this, but it's more contoured. So that one might be a little bit more comparable to the 8010. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy that one or not, but I wanted something kind of with the slimness of the Code 4 but with the grippiness of the G10 and more of the ergonomics of the 8010 as well. So I think this is a really good kind of split between these two knives. You know, the American Lawman, it's got a nice kind of flat and real thin. The weight is very similar to the Code 4. It is shorter, slightly shorter, you know, maybe about a half an inch or so. It is a little bit taller in the handles, but then if you look at the attributes of the American Lawman, you see they both have this forward choil here, and they both have a very similar index finger cutout, or, you know, finger cutout here. You don't have to put your index finger there. Obviously, it would be your middle finger if you're using that choil, but they have a very similar cutout, and it's almost a very similar drop point blade, and it's got a very similar kind of neutral flow to that top area. Whereas the Code 4, one thing I didn't like is how the top of the handle material didn't meet up with the top of the blade like that. It has that hump, which is not a big deal, but it just kind of limits your handle positions and stuff like that. You have more freedom with more of a neutral handle where it just meets the top of the blade like that. Continues on and keeps going. But yeah, this knife is very ergonomic. S35VN steel. You can only get it with this DLC coated blade. It's all blacked out. And G10, no liners. Slightly thicker than the Code 4, but much thinner than the 8010. So it is almost, to me, it's like an EDC version of the 8010. However, I do have the hollow grind version of the 8010. I know they switched to a flat grind, and you know, I've read some controversial like kind of reviews of the American Lawman. I know initially it was advertised as a hollow point, or not hollow grind, but then some people said that it was such a shallow hollow grind that they couldn't even tell that it was like a hollow grind. And to be honest, this, I know on their website, I think they advertise it as a flat grind, maybe. I'm not even sure if it even says that now, but it's almost like it does kind of look like a very shallow hollow grind, but depends on which side you're looking at. This side looks a little bit like a hollow grind, but this side looks like a flat grind. So I'm not sure really what's going on there. I mean, that clearly looks like a hollow grind to me. You can definitely see it there. Yeah, I don't know. The DLC might be throwing it off. It might be maybe how that definitely looks like a hollow grind now that I'm looking at it right there. It looks like a very shallow hollow grind nonetheless, but I did buy this from a reputable company, so you know it's not a knockoff, and maybe I got like a production hollow grind production version from a while ago that they had in stock or something, because I think apparently they did switch to advertising it as a flat grind. I'm not sure really what happened there. I mean, maybe they didn't really change the manufacturing process, but they just switched the advertisement to a flat grind because so many people were saying it looks like a flat grind. I'm not sure. Anyways, this knife has been very nice. I've owned it for almost a week now, and it is perfect for me. What I've been looking for, I've been looking for something almost as thin, or you know, similar thinness, similar overall size to this Code 4, but I want more grip, you know. So that extra grip with the American Lawman with the G10, it did come very grippy, and it, as G10 typically goes, it kind of gets smoothed out with a little bit of use, just in and out of the pocket. I've noticed kind of wears down the G10 pretty quickly, and it makes it much smoother. So yes, it did tear up my pants a little bit at first, but then they're pretty smoothed out now. You know, the G10 is not as grippy, it's not as aggressive, just about where I want it. Yeah, you can actually, a couple different ways you can open this knife. Obviously, you know, you got thumb stud. It is thicker on the right hand side. That's also one thing. It gets shipped to you a right hand tip up carry. There's an extra pocket clip it comes with where you can do left hand tip up carry. Only tip up carry though. There's no tip down, which is fine by me. I prefer tip up. And yeah, if you wanted to do that extra, the other pocket clip and do left hand tip up, you'd want to switch the thumb stud over because it is longer on the deployment side. So right now I have it for right hand setup, and you know, you can roll it out like that. You can flick it out. Sometimes it depends. There you go. Yeah, you can flick it out. You do have to give a little bit, or at least I have to give it a little bit of like wrist thrust, but it does deploy that way. You can actually depress the triad lock and lock it in. You know, you just got to time it right. You can actually gravity open this knife, which is flinging it with a flick at the end. You got to give it quite a bit of thrust with a flick, and it sometimes works. It's kind of hard with the camera here. I'll try again. Almost got it there. It's much easier when you have much more vertical room to do it with. You know, it's kind of, there we go, just like that. You know, I had to give it a little more flick than normal, because if you have more room to go like down and up, you don't have to give it as much like thrust at the end, and it will deploy with just the gravity, which I like that option. And yeah, it does have a little shallow, on the other side it's shallow, but you can kind of roll it out with your like middle finger or your index finger, and I've found a couple times I've been able to actually flick it out that way too. So there's quite a few different ways you can kind of open this knife. You know, I just did that reverse flick kind of right there. 4 different ways for me. You might find another way. Well, obviously that's one-handed. You can do two-handed ways as well. But so far I really like this knife, and it is a much more EDC friendly knife than the 8010, which I do love the 8010, but yeah, it's just kind of too big for me at times. Depends on what pants I'm wearing, but it is more similar to the Code 4, but much more preferable in my opinion with the grippier G10. And I do kind of wish they had a satin blade option, because I really like the satin that Cold Steel does. They do a very nice satin blade where it's very just beautiful, you know. Anyways, there's my thoughts of a short-term review on the Cold Steel American Lawman, and so far so good. Thank you.